Hello, and thank you for joining us for this off-campus accommodation guidance webinar. We're here today just to give students a bit of an idea of what things to look for when you're renting off-campus accommodation, important tips and things you should take into account, and how to find approved landlords as well. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the session, so please feel free, for those of you who are joining us on Zoom, to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to post any questions. And then as we get to the end of the presentation, my colleagues and myself will be able to answer those for you. Okay, so during this presentation, we'll be explaining to you how to find safe accommodation off campus with the PAL accredited landlord scheme. We'll also be giving you a demo of how to use the PAL website. And we'll also highlight key contacts for those requiring advice or guidance when considering how to rent privately off campus. We'll give you some top tips whilst renting privately, and also offer you the opportunity, as I mentioned, to ask questions to the panel as well. Okay, so if our panelists would like to introduce themselves, we'll just go around everybody who's in the presentation today, just so that the attendees know who's available.
Hello everybody, my name's Emma Lewis and I'm the Community Liaison and Support Officer here at the university. So I sit within the Dean of Students office alongside the Student Support and Welfare team.
Hi, I'm Patrick Berisha. I'm the interim PAL manager. I work for Welwyn Hatfield Borough Council. We sit in the private sector housing team. Yeah, we'll explain more about what else we do in detail later on.
Thank you. And I'm Catherine Fulton. Oh, apologies. I'm Catherine Fulton. I work in the international office. So I help with student queries about applications, going through the application process, and also I'll be the one who usually you might chat to on the phone if you're calling in for queries.
Hi, I'm Brad Johnson. I'm one of the regional managers here at the International Office, overseeing Africa and the Middle East, but also supporting with students across the world. I'll be moderating today's Q&A, but I'm also one of the team who supports students in joining us at the University of Hertfordshire.
Hello everybody, my name is Stephanie Keegan. I am an academic and welfare advisor in the Student Union Advice and Support Centre.
Hello, my name is Christine. I'm an international student from Canada, and I'm working at the Hertfordshire Law Student at the Law Clinic.
Hello, everyone. My name's Adam Walker, and I'm the International Student Support Officer within the Dean of Students Office. So I help with a lot of the events and stuff that will be going on at the start of term. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone. And as I mentioned to our attendees, you will have a chance to ask questions to everybody on the panel today as well at the end of the session. And I'll pass over to Emma now, who's going to give us a bit more detail about PAL.
Okay, so just wanted to give you a brief overview of the Partnership Accreditation for Landlords scheme. This is a free scheme available to local landlords in the Welwyn Hatfield Borough, voluntary, and it's overseen by Patrick's team, who introduced himself just now, within the private sector housing team at Welwyn Hatfield Borough Council. And it was founded back in 2012 between the University of Hertfordshire and the council, with the aim to provide tenants with safe and well-maintained accommodation. And this is the first accreditation scheme based in Hertfordshire, and it's open to all tenants, not just students, to non-student tenants as well. And if you wouldn't mind just going over to the next page, please, Kat. Thank you. So this page provides you with the web address for the PAL website, and the scheme has grown so much since 2012. there are over 100 PAL accredited landlords and 16 accredited letting agents. So you can see that it's become very, very popular, because we're here at the university, we can only recommend those who have signed up to the accreditation scheme. So it's really good promotion for those landlords and letting agents, but it means that we can try and discourage people away from maybe the less trustworthy landlords with maybe properties that aren't as good quality. And those that have signed up to this free scheme have to abide by a particular code of standards to ensure that they're providing safe and well-maintained properties. And over the years, we've tried to improve the website by including as much information we think might benefit students. So when you go onto the website, which you'll see in a bit, there is a section dedicated to students, which provides lots of important information about where you can find additional advice and guidance from within the university or externally, and just as much information as possible to make sure that you're renting safely. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now, everybody, is I'm actually going to give you a website demo of the PAL website. So I know sometimes when you're looking at a website for the first time and you're trying to look for accommodation, it might not always be immediately clear on where you need to go and what you need to do to give those landlord details. So I'm just going to flick between screens and we'll go on to the PAL website. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see the PAL website screen okay. So when you first go onto the PAL website, so that's just www.pal-online.org.uk. Now, you can see there's these areas at the top. Now, this Apply Now button, this is actually for landlords wanting to become a PAL registered landlord. So it's not for those who are looking to apply for accommodation. What you can actually do is navigate to this Students tab. And then this will give you a little bit of information about how PAL work with the University of Hertfordshire. So please feel free to read through that after this session today. But to start your property search, you can actually click here. Now this will bring up a little map of the Hatfield area. So you can see that all these properties are on the website as PAL accredited. This is the College Lane campus at the University of Hertfordshire. This is the de Havilland campus. We've also got the Galleria. This is the big Asda superstore, train station over here. So you can get an idea of whereabouts the properties are in relation to the campuses and the main shopping areas in the town. Now, what you can do, we do advise students wherever possible, ideally you should be looking to live as close to campus as you can. It'll just make things easier for you, because then you might even have the option to just walk to the campus, or you can get a local bus service. So for location, we'd recommend looking at Hatfield. Now, if you scroll down, this will then give you a list of properties that are available. So we can click on those and have a little bit of a look at more details for them. So if we have a look at this one. Okay, so the landlord's written a bit of information about the property. So you can see it's a 6-bedroom property. So if you chose to live in that accommodation, you'd be sharing your accommodation with 6 other students, but you'd have your own bedroom. There's also a bit of information about if any bills are included. So for this one, you get your broadband, gas and electric. It also gives you a bit of information about the communal areas. So this advises it's got a large kitchen, lots of cupboard space. There's actually 2 fridge freezers to share between all the residents of the property, and a bit more information about the bathrooms as well. And then it will give you a bit of information about the cost of the accommodation, how much a deposit might be. And then there's also any pictures that the landlords put available as well. So for this one, we've got a picture of the communal kitchen, and then it also looks like there's a picture of one of the bedrooms there as well. So this one's a furnished property. So you've got a desk, wardrobe and bed. Now, what you can do is if you like the look of that property and you want to contact the landlord to get more information and make enquiries, you can actually fill in this form here. So you need to input your first and last name, your email address, and then a message to the landlord. You need to click this just so the system knows that you're not a bot. And then after that, once you've filled in all the boxes with the asterisk, you'll be able to submit. That'll bounce straight to the owner of the property and they should email you back. If you want to have a look at more properties, you can press the back button and continue your search as well. Some of them will have more pictures available than others, so you can always contact the landlord just to make further inquiries. But as you can see, we've got 14 pages that we can scroll through here as well. Now, on the PAL website, you might notice that there's all these little icons. There's different icons on each property. Now, if you want to find out what those mean, you can navigate to this button at the top, PAL accreditations, and it'll just tell you what each of those icons mean. So you can have a read through those. So we've got our usual PAL accredited landlord, or you might go for a gold accredited landlord, which means they've gone above and beyond. So whatever you're most comfortable with, you can have a look through those. So please feel free to check through the PAL website and the accommodations on offer. When you're using that map facility as well, please do take into account how far it is from the campus and just make sure that you're happy to walk or that there's bus transport as well. And we're going to have a look at bus transport shortly as well for you. So I'm just going to navigate back to the presentation slides now. Okay. And I'll pass back to Emma for this slide.
Lovely. So this slide is a nice summary of the PAL and private sector housing team within Welwyn Hatfield Borough Council. So this team can be contacted directly if you have any concerns or queries about any PAL letting agents or landlords, but they also get involved with investigating cases involving potential illegal evictions. So it may be if you've come home and somebody's changed the locks, or the landlord's trying to evict you without serving the correct legal paperwork. Landlord harassment. So if you're experiencing the landlord preventing you from accessing your hot water, like your heating, areas of the property that you should have access to. And also if you have any concerns about the state of the property as well. So if there's concerns around disrepair, if maybe there are outstanding repairs that aren't being sorted, if you have a failing boiler, if there's a leak, if there's, severe cases of mold. So the contact details are on this page, and Patrick, the interim manager of PAL and works within this team, will be available for questions as well. But we all work in partnership together. So if you contacted me about some of these issues, I'd make sure that you're linked in with this team, and we just work together to try and resolve your issues. Oh, and here's me. So as I mentioned, I'm the Community Liaison Officer. So I do sit in the Dean of Students office within the Student Support and Welfare team. So I have colleagues who are student support officers that support those living in halls on both campuses. And for those living off campus or commuting into the area, I am the point of contact for those students. So I'm available to provide advice and guidance for issues that may arise with your landlords, your letting agents, your housemates, your neighbours, most things really. But if it's something that I don't have the answer to, then I'm ensure that I signpost you to the relevant services or agencies. You may need advice from the Student Union or Citizens Advice or Hearts Legal Clinic or the council. I just make sure that you're getting the right access to support that you need. But I also investigate alleged student breaches of the code of conduct at the university. So this is all fully investigated in line with the student discipline procedure. So if we have any concerns raised to us about student behaviour and they live off campus, this would come to me, and I will be in contact with students to investigate that further. And then also part of my role, I'm also the point of contact for local residents who wish to discuss any concerns or issues relating to student behaviour. So sometimes I'll receive noise nuisance complaints from residents direct, or from the police or from the council. And it's my job to go out to houses and to speak to students and just provide a little bit of advice and guidance around community relations, and just to make sure that you guys are all okay whilst you're living off campus. And I work very closely, not just with the council, but with the fire service, with the local police team. We basically all work together, the different agencies, just to ensure your safety and well-being whilst you're living off campus. And if you would like to discuss, I know we're having a question and answer session later on, but please do use my details if you have any concerns or any questions about finding safe accommodation, or if anything pops up during your time living at that property. And I always look that smiley every day, rain or shine. Thank you. Okay, and then we have the Students' Union Advice and Support Centre. Steph, would you like to provide an overview?
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody. So my name is Stephanie. So I work at the Student Union Advice and Support Centre. There's a little picture there on the bottom of me and my colleagues. So if you ever contact us, it's going to be one of us that you're going to be speaking to. We offer free, confidential and impartial advice and support to many matters related to student life. That can be anything from, anything. If you can imagine, the list is endless, but we do handle and support issues regarding landlord and letting agents or housemates. We offer informal mediation between groups of housemates if there's been a disagreement or falling out, which it does happen. It's been successful in the past. That's just something that we would offer. We work closely with the UH Community Liaison and Support Officer and the local council to provide comprehensive level of support to students. As Emma said, we all work together. So if there's an issue or query that we're unable to answer, we will signpost you to the relevant appropriate service within the uni or off campus. We are working remotely at the moment, so the best way to get in touch with the team is by emailing us on advice@hertfordshire.su. We are open Monday to Friday, 10 till 4. We can offer appointments over Skype or telephone by pre-booked appointment. But if there is any queries or concerns regarding trying to find safe housing, if you are having issues with any landlords or with your housemates or anything housing related, just drop us an email and one of the team will get back to you. And we are here to support. And as Emma said, and recalling again, we are working together and we are here for you. Thank you.
Wonderful. And then we have the Hertfordshire Law Clinic, which is quite a new service, and we're fortunate enough to have Christine here. Christine, would you be happy to provide a little overview?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Fab.
So I'm one of the student advisors that volunteers at the Law Clinic. It's on the DHAV campus in the law building, and we provide legal advice in areas, free legal advice in areas like family law, employment law, power of attorney, and housing. So we also partner with local charities like Future Living and Shelter. So the clinic hires students as advisors, and our teachers are qualified solicitors that supervise us in the advice that we give. We also have shadow appointments where solicitors can provide just on the spot one-off legal advice, and the students attend to shadow those appointments. We also do street law projects, which are kind of like interactive workshops, and we go around to schools or different community groups to provide kind of like informal presentation in areas of law, such as tenancy rights, or we've gone to high schools and done workshops on stop and search. Most recently, we actually did a presentation on tenancy rights for students, and it's available on the school's YouTube channel if anyone would like to view that. We've continued working throughout the lockdown, so all of our appointments are now taking place over Zoom. So if you contact us, and we're still open and available. Since we launched the clinic last year, we won 2 awards at the LawWorks and Attorney General Student Pro Bono Awards, and that was for Best New Pro Bono Activity. You can follow us on Twitter, and that's at Hertz Law Clinic. And if you have any inquiries, you can always email our law clinic, and that's pro bono at hertz.ac.uk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, guys, as well. So now we're just going to talk a bit about public transport links. So when you're thinking about your accommodation and where you're going to live, if your accommodation that you're choosing is not in walking distance to the university, you must ensure that you check public transport routes. You want to make sure that you'll be able to get to and from your lectures easily. So there is a big bus company that operates around the university. They're called Uno Bus, and their routes go between College Lane campus, De Havilland campus, the Hatfield train station, and they also go to some of the neighbouring towns as well. Now, you can have a look at their website, www.unobus.info. On there, you'll be able to see a big map of their network route, which I will show you in a moment as well. And then it just highlights the different routes and what towns those routes go to. Now, on the Uno website, you can also then have a look at the timetable for each of the different bus routes. So ideally, we do ask students to ensure that the accommodation that they're living in does have really good bus routes to get you to and from the campus. Ideally, we say make sure that there's going to be transport available to you between kind of 7:30 a.m. and 8:15 p.m. just because sometimes the lecture times, you might have lectures starting at 8 in the morning up until kind of 7:30, 8 p.m. in the evenings if the tutor needs to rota them in as such. So you just need to make sure that when you are thinking about accommodation, those bus routes are going to be available over quite a wide stretch of the day as well. And also, after you've finished your lectures, you might want to grab a bite to eat from the university canteen rather than just rushing straight back to get the bus if you have had quite a late lecture. So it's nice to have a bit of flexibility and you're not worrying about rushing to get that last bus home. You should also be mindful of transport costs. Now, some people who are looking to live in towns that you'd have to get the train for, you need to take into account that the trains and the bus routes, you're going to have to pay for those. So if you're having to pay for that and coming into the campus, you're going to need to take that into consideration as well when you're thinking about the maintenance that you need to prepare for university. We'd also recommend, if you are looking to live somewhere where you need to get the train and then the bus, you need to have a look at the two timetables together and make sure that the bus timetable matches up with the time your train's going to come in as well, just so you don't get caught out and you're waiting at the train station. This is why we do recommend students to live as close to campus as possible. So Hatfield ideally is where you should be living. Living in Hatfield, it just means that you'll have access to kind of the support networks a lot easier as well. Our teams, you know, you're a lot closer to campus, so we'll have better access to support you as well. So ideally, when you're looking at the PAL website, check around Hatfield, see if there's an accommodation that you would like and choose that one. So this is part of the Uno Bus network map that I mentioned before. It actually does continue quite a way up and down, but we've just focused on Hatfield and the surrounding areas at the moment. Now, you can see all the different coloured lines and then which buses these correspond to. And then once you've picked the closest bus route to the accommodation you're looking at, that's when you can check the timetable. So again, you'll be able to see neighbouring towns such as St Albans, that's got quite a few Uno bus routes that go to it. Luton, however, that's only got this one, so you need to be really looking into things if you are looking to live here, because it is further out. And then you've also got Welwyn Garden City, which you can also actually get the train to from Hatfield, so there's a few different transport options if you're living there, and the neighbouring city of Hertford. Now, this is a more zoomed in version of the map, which again you can access on Uno Bus's website. So this is just around Hatfield. You'll see here we've got the College Lane campus, and this is the De Havilland campus, again the Galleria, and this is the train station over here, and Asda. So you can see all these different bus routes are going between the campuses or to the train station. So this is just really important for you to check. You should also know all this information ready for when you're making your visa application. You should have all this planned out and know how you're going to be able to get to your lectures. Okay, so closing statements from us. Some things to consider when you are looking to rent privately. Make sure that you are choosing PAL accredited landlords. It's so important, and it'll just keep you in good quality accommodation where we know that your deposit is safe and secure as well. Look at your public transport options, or ideally be walking distance to the university so you don't have to rely on public transport. Prepare to pay a tenancy deposit, or you may be asked to have a guarantor in the UK. This is sometimes required for certain students. If the landlord wants that, they will let you know. Look at the length of the tenancy. Does that match the length that you're going to be studying for? Take that into account as well, because you don't want your accommodation tenancy to end before your studying has finished. And also housemates. What's the maximum amount of people that you would like to live with and share your communal rooms with? Or do you just want to live with maybe one other person and see if your budget allows for you to get just a flat so that you're only living with one other person? Again, you can check all these on the PAL website and it'll tell you how many people each accommodation is for. Okay, so when you're preparing to come to the UK and you're preparing for your quarantine period, if quarantine applies to where you're travelling from, you must arrange your accommodation before you arrive in the UK. This is an absolute must, because this year as well, all passengers will need to fill in a public health passenger locator form. This has come into light because of COVID, so it's just so that there is a track and trace system. So if people do need to isolate, or if there is kind of an outbreak from the flight that you're on, it's just a lot easier for people to get in touch with you and alert you to that. On the passenger locator form, you need to include your address that you'll be staying at for at least your first 14 days in the UK. And if you refuse to provide the details, you could be fined up to £100. So as long as you've arranged your accommodation before you arrive in the UK, you'll be able to put that accommodation address on that passenger locator form. You won't be at risk of any fees. And also for peace of mind, you know that you've got somewhere to stay and it's all arranged, and then you can just relax when you get here, start your quarantine and start accessing your online learning materials as well. So if you're not arriving via a travel corridor, so you can check these on the government website, you should have also received an email from our international office just linking you to that and with a bit more guidance on the do's and don'ts of quarantine as well. But basically, you need to stay in your home for the first 14 days. Your household will become your household bubble. So you'll be allowed to interact with other people within your household, but you shouldn't be interacting with anybody outside of your household, and you should stay in your home for the first 14 days after you've arrived in the UK. You also can't go to the shops, unfortunately. So what we've done, we've actually emailed everyone just to give you a bit of idea on where you can order food from. So there's a lot of big supermarkets in the UK. You can sign up to those. Some of them will actually allow you to place a food order up to 3 weeks beforehand. So once you know your address, which again, that's another reason why it's so important to arrange your accommodation, because once you know your address, you could look to arrange a food order for, say, the day or the day after you're due to arrive at your accommodation, so that you know that that is on the way. What a lot of the big supermarkets are doing is they'll actually deliver the food to your door. They can leave it in the shopping bags outside your door, and then they'll ring your doorbell. You can then open it, bring your food inside and unpack it into the kitchen so that you don't need to go to the shops. For those staying on campus, there is on-campus food available for delivery as well. So we've emailed everybody about that separately. But for those of you living off campus, obviously that won't be available to you. So you need to make sure that you've arranged something with the local supermarkets. Okay, and that brings us to the Q&A section of our webinar today. So I can see that some of you have already posted questions in the Q&A section. We're going to let our team member Brad Johnson go through the questions, and he'll direct them at the appropriate staff.
Hello, thank you very much for that, Kat. That was a really interesting presentation, and I hope the students on Zoom as well as on Facebook found that useful. I'll be taking questions from people in the Zoom webinar, but also I'll take some from our Facebook page as well. The first one is one that I'll just take first before we go on to the other ones, is all about the university. Should it provide 14 days quarantine accommodation? So the answer is it depends where you're living. If you are living on campus with us, you will self-isolate in your accommodation. We will support you on campus with, there'll be food parcels, there'll also be on-campus support over Zoom or other services like that. The area that we can't provide support is we will not be providing temporary accommodation because we don't have the amount of rooms. If you are living off campus, obviously, as Kat said, you can self-isolate there. Bearing in mind, you should make arrangements to ensure you can have food delivered to your room. Some students may also choose to temporarily book a hotel for 14 days. Again, you need to make sure that's a hotel that can have things delivered to your room because you won't be able to leave your bedroom. So if you are on campus with us, you are able to self-isolate in your room and you'll have that support, but there is no temporary accommodation. But the guidance is all on the UK government's website, and we'd advise you to check before you travel, because the guidance can change every day. So that's that question. Let's go for another one. So someone's, I'm just going through the questions, please bear with me. So someone said, and Emma, you might be able to answer this one for both off and on campus. If there's a couple, can they stay in on-campus accommodation in the same room? But also, obviously, what would you advise a couple to do with off-campus?
Oh, sorry.
Emma, for the on-campus, do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Adam.
So for on-campus, we've got a number of different types of rooms. On de Havilland, they're all the same. And then on College Lane, you've got quite a variety of different rooms. Couples can't stay in the same room on de Havilland, but on College Lane, there's a type of room called a twin room. And inside a twin room, you've got two separate beds, and then you're allowed 2 people that would stay in that room. So what you could do if you're a couple, the only suitable room to stay in the same room would be the twin bedroom. So what you could do, you could email accommodation at hearts.ac.uk. I'll also put that into the chat so that you've got that, and just advise that if you are a couple that you'd like to have a twin room, and then I'm sure they'd be able to make the arrangements for you. But all the other rooms are single occupancy.
And just to clarify, both those people living in those twin rooms on campus have to be students. They can't be a dependent.
Yeah, that's correct.
And off campus, Emma?
And for off campus, it would depend. I would recommend that you speak to the landlord of the property, because it would depend if both members of that couple are tenants of the property that's being rented. If the second person of the couple is a guest, it may be tricky. It's all about ensuring the safety of those living within that household bubble. So in the first instance, as these properties are privately rented, the university doesn't have involvement in the legal contracts, I would always liaise with the landlord first and just clarify what their arrangements are for couples.
Excellent. One student on Facebook has said they haven't yet applied for off-campus accommodation. Should they be worried yet, or is there still time to secure accommodation?
No, availability for off-campus accommodation varies throughout the year, just because landlords and letting agents have different properties pop up. You're certainly not too late at all. Everyone's accepting applications, but I wouldn't wait too long, but also do not feel pressured into signing up to something that you're not 100% sure. I know that a lot of the letting agents are offering virtual tours of the properties, which really help. But as we've said, like, make sure you go with a PAL accredited landlord rather than maybe finding something off Spare Room or Facebook. Make sure that you find something accredited.
The next one, actually, probably direct at, again, Adam and Kat. I think the nature of these webinars at this time of the year, we will get these kind of questions. Obviously, we've talked about the importance of the quarantining when you get to the UK if you're not in a country with a travel corridor. What's the process for a student when they get to the airport and coming to the university? I directly say kind of Kat or Adam about airport pickup or the process this year because of COVID.
Okay, so I'll start and then Kat can fill in if there's anything that I missed. But so you should have received an email on Monday from the international office with all the details about your arrival in the UK. Within that email, there was some information which explains that unfortunately we can't currently run the airport collections, although we're due to government guidelines, although we're reviewing that every day, and then we'll let you know as soon as we can if that does change. But below that was a list of free taxi companies that we work with at the university who offer a pre-booking service where you can call them up before, give them your flight details, and then they'll arrange a pre-booked taxi to collect you from the airport. And that is the guidance that the government would recommend, that you don't use the public transport and you do use these pre-booked taxis. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, Kat?
Yeah, you've pretty much covered everything. Thank you, Adam. The only thing that I would say to people is the taxi companies that we provided you with on that email, some of them will want to have your booking a minimum of kind of 2 or 3 days before. However, the closer that they get to the time, if there's a lot of students all arriving at the same time, they'll need to know as early in advance when you'd want picking up. So as soon as you've booked your flight, I'd recommend getting in touch with one of these taxi companies and just pre-booking your spot with them, just so you've got it secured. Then you've got peace of mind that your transport from the airport to the campus or to your accommodation is covered. Don't leave it till the last minute. Don't leave it till the day before. And usually what they'll want is as well, because they'll wait for you at a certain point in the airport car park or the pickup zone, some of them ask that you have a mobile phone number that they can contact you on for when you land. So if you just check with your phone provider if your contact number is going to work once you land in the UK, just so you can tell the taxi company, in case you have any trouble finding each other when you land, then you can speak to each other over the phone.
Excellent. So the next one is, I'll do this one first. So does the university act as a guarantor for a student if they don't have a UK-based guarantor, or do they need to find one or potentially pay their rent up front?
I can answer this. So this is quite a common question that we get. Unfortunately, the university we cannot act as a guarantor for students. We often say that there are companies online that you can use. Unfortunately, we can't recommend specific ones, but I would definitely shop around online because there are fees involved. But again, I know I'm going on like a broken record, but some landlords do request, if you don't have a guarantor in the UK, that you pay a large sum of rent up front. Please do only do this if you know that the landlord is safe. For example, a PAL accredited landlord. And if you are making rent payments in advance, make sure you do it via bank transfer, get receipts for any payments made. But you know, sometimes people do choose to use a guarantor service online.
And then we've got another one, is probably the same kind of area. In terms of the typical payments for of off-campus accommodation, a student here presumably wants to pay when they get to the UK so they can avoid international bank-to-bank transfer fees. Obviously, a deposit sometime is charged beforehand, but what's the typical payment plan for an off-campus accommodation?
there are different fees involved, and Patrick will be able to help me with this. But I know initially you would be asked to pay a holding deposit, and that just means that you're securing the room. So this holding deposit is different to a tenancy deposit. The tenancy deposit is something that should be protected by the landlord in the event that there are any damages to the property that need to be deducted. But again, this money needs to be secured in a government recognised tenancy deposit scheme. Prices for off-campus accommodation really do vary depending on location, what sort of accommodation you're looking for. You know, are you looking for a room in a house share, or are you looking for your own apartment? On average, a room in a house share could be anything from £400 a month upwards. If you want to have an apartment by yourself, then that can be double that. It can be at least about £900. Patrick, did you want to give any additional information about what sort of rules are around the fees that might be charged?
Yeah, I mean, the new Tenants Fees Act sort of limits what the landlords can charge. So, for example, let's say rent is £2,000 per month, is divided by 4, that's £500. That's the most of the deposit they can sort of ask from you. So week's rent, and it's quite detailed. And it's quite good. So if, for example, most of our PAL landlords will know this, and they will not go above what's permitted fees. So there's permitted fees, which is, we've mentioned. There's also the prohibited ones. So anything above a week's rent will be a prohibited fee. So if that happens, please contact us and we'll look at it in detail.
Excellent. This is one potentially for Kat, just to clarify. There's a student here who said they have a family friend in Saffron Walden, which is in North Essex. Is he okay to stay there? Just to add some context, Kat, on public transport, that's 4 changes and it's a 2-hour commute to university. What advice would you give to students who do want to live with family members, but it is, and people might not realise actually, although it looks close on a map, actually the transport networks might not be that good for students to commute to university?
Ideally, we would be recommending students to live as close as campus as they can. That does sound quite far away, so it would be quite a commute for you if you had to do that kind of twice a day, 4 or 5 days a week. You also need to take into account how much that's going to cost you, because if you're getting the train kind of to and from London each day, if there's tubes involved and then buses, you need to weigh up, is it actually going to be cheaper living with that family friend, or if I cut out the transport costs, is it actually just going to be cheaper, and I'll have a much better quality of kind of time balance with commuting if I live closer to the university. So for anybody who is looking to live with family and friends, I know that it's quite an appealing option, because then you feel like you get the free accommodation, but you need to weigh that up against the cost of the transport, how long it's going to take you to get to and from the campus, and are you really going to be willing to do that every day? So please do look into these and make sure that you're making the right decision for yourself, just for that kind of commute life balance as well.
We've got a student here who says, I've got a friend in London. Can you stay there during the quarantine and then move to Hatfield? So that's a conversation that you and your friend obviously need to have. You are able to stay in that property in London during your quarantine period, and that would be the address you would put on your form. You need to check the government's website, because actually if you start to display symptoms, you could be there for a considerable amount of time. And if you start to show symptoms, it may mean that your friend would have to also self-isolate, and that guidance is on the government website. So that's a conversation for you and your friend to have. Once you have cleared the quarantine period, you could then move to Hatfield to start your student tenancy, although it might be beneficial for you to just stay in Hatfield. But I would advise that you and your friend both read the government's guidance, because it might be that only you need to self-isolate, but if you start to show symptoms, that would mean that your friend in London may also have to self-isolate, which means they would not be able to go to work. And so that's a conversation you need to have between the two of you. Then I'm just going through any else. Someone's just asked here about accommodation on campus. So the contract lengths are the contract lengths. You can't do a rolling monthly contract in our on-campus accommodation. You would need to do it for the defined contract lengths that are within your accommodation offer. Kat, correct me if I'm wrong, someone's put that if they bring their corona test results to the UK with them, they still will need to self-isolate if they're not in a travel corridor, won't they?
Yeah, the guidance is just for everybody who's not in those travel corridors, just to self-isolate, just to keep everybody with peace of mind. A lot of your housemates will be in the same situation as well. There's also going to be a lot of kind of online events. I know the Dean of Students have got some really fun things coming up as well, competitions between households. So yeah, you'll still be advised to complete your self-isolation period just in case, and just to keep everybody safe and feeling secure.
This question here, and actually Emma, it would be good if you could touch on this and maybe talk about the PAL scheme, and if someone doesn't want to live in Hatfield and where they could potentially look. Someone said they want to live in Luton, and we know that's a popular area for our students. One, how close is it to campus? But also, how does the support differ when you choose to live outside of the Hatfield, Welland Hatfield area? And also, how can someone ensure they're renting safely in an area not obviously monitored by the university in terms of landlord accreditation?
Okay, it is quite a risk once you've moved further out of Welland Hatfield, because the PAL accreditation only does cover that borough. So when you move further afield, I can still provide support to those students, and I have been remotely during the pandemic. But it's about linking them in with the local services there. So if you have concerns around your property or your landlord, it is just about linking you in with the local council there at Luton. Within Welland within Welland Hatfield, we just have so many better connections to try and support students as quickly as possible. As Kat mentioned with the travel links, the further afield you go, the longer it will take. So I think if you do have the option to live in Welland Hatfield, please do choose that, because there's no way of us vetting these landlords outside the borough, and you know, I just want to ensure your safety as much as possible, really.
And then we've got a student here, similar question, obviously wanting to live near, say, Albans Station. Is that information available on the PAL? I know it's just obviously outside the remit of Welland Hatfield, but then I suppose one of the reasons probably wants to live near St Albans is so they can get into London, but actually there are houses in Hatfield that are close to Hatfield Station that means you can also get into London, and
Yeah.
it's the difference between King's Cross and St Pancras. But in terms of people living
Yes.
in St Albans, what support is there, if there is any?
Petra, do we have any accredited landlords out in St Albans?
I'm not aware of any. What I was going to suggest, if you don't mind, is that if, for example, you're approaching an agent outside of our area and there's no accreditation there, the best thing to do would be to check if they're a member of redress scheme, because, you know, that's another sort of safety net, if you like. There's two redress schemes, which I will copy and paste the link on the chat. The PRS and the Property Ombudsman. So I'll send that, but the agents must be a member if they're handling sort of, or managing any properties or handling any money or deposits or fees on behalf of a landlord. So I'll put that on the chat, if that's okay with you.
What I will add actually is that it would be really helpful for you all. We are just in the final development stages of a student support off-campus guide. So a lot of the information that we've been talking about today is in this guide, and it's an overview of support for those living off campus. So even if you are living outside the borough and you have queries, you can contact me, and obviously we will do as much as we can to help you. But once this guide is available, we will be promoting it as much as possible, because then it will just give you some more tools to make sure that you're choosing safe accommodation.
Excellent. Just going through some more. Kat, just we've got some students obviously, and it will affect their accommodation choices. It's approximately when do students need to arrive in the UK? And it's probably just worth talking a bit about that in a bit, probably the general terms of what's on their CAS and then when should they travel to the UK.
Now, you should have all received an email with your specific course start date. Most courses, if it's postgraduate, they might have a start date of the 26th of October. Some of the health courses do have earlier course start dates, so please do check your emails, and if you're not sure, do get in touch with us at the international office so that we can check for you. Undergraduate courses, they'll have an earlier start date. What we're asking students to do is, as long as everybody is in the UK and registered by the 26th of October, that's okay. However, we want you to be here as soon as you can, so you need to check the date on your CAS for the earliest date that you can travel, and then we're actually able to offer you to come to the UK 14 days before your course start date, so you can complete your 14-day quarantine period, get that out of the way so that you can then start the course. I know for some students it's not possible to come for the actual course start date, so just arrive as soon as you can after the date on your CAS. As long as you're here, as I say, and registered by the 26th of October, then that's okay. But that is the final date to register this year. So you need to be in the UK. I've sent all your registration documents online to the team because registration is going to be fully remote this year. But yeah, for anybody who's not sure, check on your email. There'll be one called Arrival Information, and it'll have your start date on and the last date you can register, and also the date that you can come to start your quarantine if you want to.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions here, and I suppose the next two do link together. So I'll ask them together, and if you want to pan this, whoever feels most comfortable answer. So what's the typical budget someone would need if they want to live off campus? And I'm assuming that includes accommodation. And then someone's asked, what's part-time work like in the Hatfield area, and then probably Kat, some detail on the balance students need to strike with studies and part-time work. So I'll throw it out there a bit about budgeting, cost of living, and also work. So
for when you're applying for your Tier 4 visa, the maintenance amount that you need to show is £9,135. You need to show that along with any outstanding course fees for your first year tuition. Now, some students will want to live a different kind of lifestyle to others. That's just the amount that the UKVI have determined. What you need to do is you need to have a look at the accommodation that you want. What's the weekly or monthly rental cost? Does it include bills? There's also a page on our website that we can circulate that just gives an idea of what the typical bills might be for a student who's rented in the UK. But you'll need to take into account if your accommodation includes bills or not. Again, where is your accommodation located? Do you have to take into account transport costs to get to your lectures? And also, how much budget do you want for socialising? Some students might not be wanting to go out too much between lectures or at the weekend, whereas others might be wanting to head into London, go to sightseeing at different points in the UK, using the train system a lot. So it does just depend on your kind of individual student experience, what you want to do and how you want to spend your time. But the maintenance amount that you have to show is that £9,135 for your first year of study. Just moving on to the part-time jobs question. There are part-time jobs available in Hatfield. So if you're on your Tier 4 visa, you can work up to 20 hours per week while you're studying. Lots of students will work at places like the Galleria, or there's a lot of restaurants around as well, just to earn a bit of part-time money between lectures. We don't recommend students to work more than that. Well, you can't if you're on your Tier 4 visa, but ideally we'd recommend students not to work more than kind of 15 hours a week maximum, just because the tuition fees, obviously you've put a lot of work into getting to the UK to study, that should be your main focus. You need to be making sure that you're putting 100% into all your coursework assignments. You know, you're refreshed and you're ready for your lectures. Part-time work, that should come second, just as a bit of extra on the side money as well. So ideally you need to be putting all your time and energy into making sure that you're getting the best course grades that you can, and you're putting a lot of time into doing the out of class readings and also doing your research as well.
Excellent. Next one, just to say to anyone who's putting questions about CASs, we won't be taking questions about CASs in this session. This is about off-campus accommodation. If you do have a question about your CAS issuance or the CAS issuance process, please email international@herts.ac.uk and our international admissions team will answer those questions. Adam, probably one for you. Is there a Facebook group for new joiners to meet each other?
Yep, so we've actually got a dedicated, it's called Hearts Virtual Community, and we've had a lot of new joiners have joined us on that Facebook group recently. What I'll do is I'll put a link in the chat to that, but you can also search Hearts Virtual Community and that'll come up. And like I said, there's lots of applicants that are in there. There's also another group that's run by the university called Hertfordshire 2020/2021, and I know that there's lots of conversations that are going on in there as well with new joiners, like you said. So yeah, I'll put links to the Hearts Virtual Community in the chat, and also just to note, once you arrive in the UK and you are in quarantine, there's going to be lots of different posts about how to keep yourself busy and some fun ideas on there, so that's definitely a good Facebook group to join before you arrive.
Excellent. So final couple of questions before we conclude today's webinar. What's the average rent per what's the average rent per bedroom per person staying off campus, Emma? I suppose this is just a general kind of what can people expect to know. Obviously, it does vary between property to property.
Yeah, I would say at least £400 a month. And I will, if you see any adverts online for a lot less, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. I've seen adverts online for maybe £250, £300 a month, and it's turned out that it's been a scam. So if you're looking at an advert and it's around £450, then it depends on whether your bills are included, but that's your sort of lower end of the scale.
Okay. I think there is pretty much anything else. Kat, did you just want to read out our phone line for students if they've got any queries and they want to speak to the international office team, because someone's just requested the phone line.
I've not got the phone line off by heart at the minute, but what I'll do, I'll include it in the chat, and also in the, I know some of you have been watching this live on Facebook. My colleague Chris, thank you very much. He's been answering your comments on Facebook as well. Chris, if you could include the phone line number for students to call in on in the chat and just pin that comment along with our email address, international@hearts.ac.uk, and also the PAL website address, just so students can go back in there and find it afterwards. For any of you who are students of ours as well, the phone line number is also on the website, so if you ever have any queries, you can navigate to the Contact International Office page, and our phone number is on there as well for you to call. You just need to remember to put +44 at the beginning if you're dialing from overseas.
Excellent. I think that concludes today's questions relating to accommodation. So I'll hand back to you, Kat, to conclude today's webinar.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining today. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for now. For those of you watching on Facebook, there is another webinar at 12:30 today, which is focused on creative arts applicants. So if you've applied for creative arts, please feel free to rejoin us for that. We'll also look to share the content of this webinar just so that you've got it for reference purposes as well. But to all the panelists, thank you very much for your time today and for answering the questions, and to all the students who've joined us, thank you very much, and we look forward to welcoming you to the UK over the next couple of months.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.